December 1937 in Nanking was a time that marked the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in human history. In this city, fear reigned supreme, and the haunting cries of innocent civilians echoed through the streets as humanity confronted its darkest hour. Have you ever wondered what level of horrors could unfold in just 6 weeks? Join us as we uncover the unspeakable events that occurred during this tragic chapter, and let us ensure that the voices of those who suffered are never silenced. We will explore first-hand accounts and survivor testimonies that bring to light the brutality faced by those trapped in this nightmare. If you're intrigued by this historical era and want to explore more contemporary history, please like this video and subscribe to the Before Now channel. Your support helps us bring more captivating stories to life. Nanking, once a thriving capital of China, became a hellscape as Japanese Imperial forces advanced into the city. What came after was a wave of brutality that would leave scars on the collective memory of a nation. The conflict in Nanking persisted beyond the night of December 12th to 13th, following the Japanese army's capture of the remaining gates and entrance into the city. The Japanese army continued to encounter sporadic resistance from remaining Chinese forces for several additional days. During this period, the Japanese military determined that they needed to eliminate any remaining Chinese soldiers hidden within the city. However, the search process used an arbitrary criteria for identifying former Chinese soldiers. In other words, Chinese males who were deemed to be in good health were automatically presumed to be soldiers. Many who were apprehended by the Japanese were taken to the Yangtze River, where they were machine-gunned to death. What was probably the single largest massacre of Chinese troops, the Strawstring Gorge Massacre, occurred along the banks of the Yangtze River on December 18th. For most of the morning, Japanese soldiers tied the POWs' hands together. At dusk, the soldiers divided POWs into 4 columns and opened fire. Unable to escape, the POWs could only scream desperately. It took an hour for the sounds of death to stop, and even longer for the Japanese to bayonet each individual, with the majority of the bodies being dumped directly into the Yangtze River afterwards. It didn't end at that. Japanese troops also gathered 1,300 Chinese soldiers and civilians at Taiping Gate and murdered them. With the relocation of the capital of China, constant bombing raids, and reports of Japanese brutality, much of Nanking's civilian population had already fled out of fear. Wealthy families were the first to flee, leaving Nanking in automobiles, followed by the evacuation of the middle class and then the poor, leaving behind the destitute lowest class, such as the ethnic Tanka boat people and those with assets that could not be easily moved, like shopkeepers. For 6 weeks, Japanese troops committed unimaginable atrocities against the civilian population, with estimates suggesting that between 200,000 and 300,000 people lost their lives during this 6-week rampage. Captured Chinese soldiers were not just defeated, they were systematically slaughtered. In fact, survivors recount harrowing tales of men being rounded up and executed in cold blood, their bodies left to rot in the streets. One survivor described how soldiers would force civilians into killing contests where lives were extinguished for sport. But the horror did not end with death. The Nanking Massacre is also infamous for its pervasive sexual violence. Report estimates indicate that in the first month of the occupation, Japanese soldiers committed approximately 20,000 cases in the city, with some estimates claiming 80,000. According to the International Military Tribunal for the Far East, of all ages, including children and elderly women, were commonplace. And there were many instances of sadistic and violent behavior related to these. Following these, many women were killed and their bodies mutilated. A large number were done systematically by the Japanese soldiers as they went from door to door searching for girls, with many women being captured and gang. In certain cases, victims were often taken from their homes and subjected to unimaginable brutality. One survivor recounted her harrowing experience of being held captive for days in a barrack filled with around 300 Japanese soldiers, enduring unspeakable horrors before managing to escape. Though she survived, the haunting memories of that ordeal would stay with her forever. The Japanese forces didn't just kill, they sought to instill terror. Entire neighborhoods were razed to the ground. Looting became rampant as soldiers stripped the city of its resources. Homes burned, families shattered, futures obliterated. You're tuned in to a Before Now production. Take a moment to like this video, comment, and subscribe for more gripping tales. Let's dive back in. In the aftermath of this tragedy, survivors began to share their harrowing experiences. Families were torn apart, and neighbors vanished without a trace. 22 men and women shared intensely personal stories of surviving the Nanking massacre during the USC Show Foundation's trip to China in June to record more testimonies for its Nanking massacre collection. The survivors were mostly children or teens who had never traveled outside their city or village when the massacre began. When the massacre started, they witnessed parents being taken away by Japanese soldiers, never to be seen again, and family members and neighbors beaten and killed. Liv Jinbao described a bomb exploding near him. He was bleeding but didn't feel much pain, and only in 2000 did he learn that he had had a piece of shrapnel in his head ever since then. Sadly, he went blind from the shrapnel a few years later. Liv also said one of his friends killed a Japanese soldier who was trying to his sister and buried the body in his backyard. Zi Guiying escaped 2 attempts, but not the third. She became very emotional while telling the story. And after some research into other interviews she has given, the Show Foundation team realized this was probably the first time she ever told the truth about her to an interviewer. Chen Guangshun was one of the only people in his village to not be executed by machine gun, simply because he had given the soldiers 2 roosters and a basket of potatoes. The brutality witnessed during the Nanking massacre was not merely a consequence of war. It was a calculated strategy aimed at breaking the spirit of resistance among the Chinese people. In the midst of this turmoil, some individuals bravely chose to confront the tide of horror. The International Committee for the Nanking Safety Zone was established by Westerners who risked their lives to provide refuge for Chinese civilians. As in the Nazi Holocaust, many individuals during the Nanking massacre tried to the best of their ability to help those in desperate need of medical care, protection, and sanctuary. At times, their lives would be endangered, and in several cases, their rescue work would cost them their lives. The common thread of these altruistic individuals is a comment by all: you would have done the same thing. One notable figure is John Rabe, a German businessman and Nazi Party member who eventually became the chairman of this committee. He documented atrocities while providing food and shelter to over 250,000 refugees. His diaries reveal not only his despair, but also his determination to save lives. Minnie Vautrin, an American missionary at Gingling College, was also an important figure who played a crucial role in protecting women and children from violence. Her bravery and compassion in this trying time saved countless lives during these dark days. The legacy of Nanking is one of fear and loss, but also resilience and courage. The voices of survivors like Ren Wenying remind us that even in despair, there was hope. She explained that she and other girls pretended to be boys to protect themselves from being by the Japanese army. However, the soldiers forced them to fight each other so they could determine who was lying. One girl was taken away and never seen again. The survivor stories serve as a powerful reminder of human endurance in the face of overwhelming challenges. Today, memorials and educational initiatives strive to ensure that these events are remembered and acknowledged globally. As we reflect on these unspeakable horrors, it is vital to recognize their impact on modern society. The lessons learned from Nanking compel us to advocate for justice and remembrance for all victims of war crimes. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of one of history's darkest chapters. Remember to like this video if you found it informative. Subscribe to this channel for more content on historical events that shaped our world. And leave your thoughts in the comments below. Together, let's honor those who suffered by keeping their stories alive.